Well, we're going to get started, everyone. So just welcome, and thank you very much for joining us for, I think it's our 6th webinar in our webinar series. We're delighted to have everyone join us today. We're going to be exploring cultural humility and nursing in BC. So my name is Colleen Kennedy. I'm with the BC Patient Safety Quality Council, and I'll be moderating the session today. We're going to have Dr. Becky Palmer, Inez Louis, and Lisa Sam joining us today for our presentations. I'm going to give them a more fulsome introduction in a little bit. But before we get going, we want to just introduce you to some of the technology. So just a few of the things as you're navigating today's call. We're going to be using a bit of the technology. We may invite you to use question marks or check marks, as we're moving through the call. So the check mark is sort of halfway down the screen on the right-hand side. It lets you kind of, if we ask a question, you can answer it that way. But more importantly, we're probably going to use the hand icon. So because of the lines are muted, you're welcome to put any questions right in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and we'll unmute your line later on during questions. So again, if you're not sure where that hand is, if you look at the right-hand kind of quarter of your screen, about halfway down, you'll see a nice hand icon on the far left-hand side in that box. You can select to raise your hand. The chat box is something else we'll do. We'll kind of walk through that shortly as well. WebEx audio, in an ideal world, try and link your line to your phone. It helps us to mute and unmute the lines more effectively, so just a little introduction to how to do that. And sometimes if you've actually connected with your computer, it's fine. I wouldn't hang up today, but for future calls, we do encourage you for better sound to connect via your computer or via your phone. That we find with a landline, the sound quality is a little bit better for some folks who've had a difficulty hearing. Sometimes it's just that computer connection, the sound quality isn't quite as good. But here's the instructions, and these will be posted. So if you do want to hang up, you can stay on the WebEx. All you do is hang up your computer line and call back in using your telephone. You're more than welcome to do that today, or just save that for our next call. As I mentioned, we are using the WebEx chat today. We encourage you to take a couple minutes right now to pop a little note in the chat box. Ensure you select to all participants when you click send, but it's on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. You can set a little note in there, and we'd like to invite you to let us know your name and where you're from if you haven't already done so. So we'd love to hear who we're touching out to today. It's really great to have so many people joining on the call, and it's always wonderful to have a sense of who we're talking to and where you're all from. Right now we've got 71 unique callers on the line already, so that's amazing. So people all over the province. Hello, Jen at FNHA. All right, so as we get going here, we're just going to move on. The other thing we want to let you know is that we are recording. The session is being recorded, and we will post the recording as well as the slides after the call today. So the link to the video and the slides will be distributed via email to all participants and then posted on the FNHA site. So if you are watching this and think, oh, I really want someone else to see it, we'll have a chance for you to be able to look at it after the fact and also share those slides with other people. Hello, Wayne and Susan. Lots of people coming online. For those of you who are on Twitter today, we've got our hashtags. It starts with me and cultural humility with the hashtags we've been using. The Twitter handles that our speakers did provide for us today were howdy to you, which Lisa explained means hello to you. We also have the FNHA and BCPSQC's handles here as well. Great. So just before we do start is, due to the sensitive nature of some of the subjects that's shared during webinar sessions, participants may be triggered. So we really want to ensure and remind people to make sure they've got any supports around they may need, such as an elder, a trusted mentor, a family, or friend. We want to emphasize that if you do need support, please don't hesitate to call the toll-free crisis line here in the province, and that number is provided on the slide as well today. So if you want to be able to call that line, we encourage you to access that number as well, and maybe take a minute right now to write that down. I can also put it in the chat box for people, so you've got access to that during today's call. So as we get started right now, before we get started, I really want to welcome our elder. So Virginia Peters has joined us for all but one of our webinars, and we've been really honored to have her be here to kind of open and ground these sessions. I certainly want to acknowledge the traditional territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam nations that the Council's offices are on, but also the territories that each of us are on across the province today. Virginia joins us to kind of ground our session, and she's an elder, or junior elder, who was born in Chehalis, BC. Her immediate family consists of 3 daughters, 2 sons, and 11 grandchildren, 6 foster grandchildren, and 11 great-grandchildren. I always have such envy whenever I read that, Virginia. I'd love to have such a big extended family, hopefully one day. She comes from a strong matriarchal system, and you'll hear that with Jenny's history of volunteerism and commitment to her community. She's added so much. So she's very family and community oriented and has really made a huge contribution. And in her role here today, Virginia is actually an elder with the First Nations Health Directors Association. And we really like to thank Virginia and the First Nations Health Directors for their partnership in this webinar series and taking the time to join us each time. So Virginia, I'll hand it over to you now for the opening prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. AGIA. Thank you, friends. And I can see we are going to have a really good session today. It's so good to be able to have the nurses come on board and talk about something like we say is so sensitive to our people, in ensuring, you know, that we really take into strong consideration our ways as First Nations people and Aboriginal people in providing appropriate services to all of our people. So I thought I would start the session off with singing a healing song. Oh, hello. Oh, oh, hey. Oh, hello. Oh, oh, hey. Oh, hello. Oh, oh, hey. Oh, hello. Hand of God, touch my soul. Hand of God, heal my soul. Hand of God, take my soul and forever be with you. Oh, hello. Oh, oh, hey. 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 Hand of God, touch my heart. Hand of God, heal my heart. Hand of God, take my heart home and forever be with you. Oh, hello. Oh, oh, hey. Oh, hello. Oh, oh, hey. Thank you, Great Spirit. Thank you for being with us today. We can see that there are many people who want to open up their hearts, open up their souls, to help all of the people who are needing that help in all of our communities. Many people suffering in so many ways, and sometimes we feel like there's just no way to turn. And so we need to be able to open ourselves up to be with the ones who are needing that kind of help today. So Creator, we ask you to be with us today so that we can help together, help each other, support one another, so that we can be the best for all of our people, all my relations.
Thank you so much. So appreciate you starting us off, Virginia. Really appreciate you grounding today. I'm sorry for the barking dog in the background at my house. All right, as we get started right now, just thank you again, Virginia, for joining us. We really appreciate having you and really grounding us today as we start our time together. It's with pleasure now I get to introduce our three speakers who are joining us today to have a conversation. So Lisa Sam is a community health nurse with the Nagazli Health Center. She's a member of the Frog Clan from the community up in Fort St. James. She's a community health nurse with one child, and she graduated in 1996 with an RN diploma, and in 2000 she graduated from UNBC with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. We also have Inez Louis joining us today. She's a registered nurse, a mother of two, and a nationally recognized role model. She's traveled extensively to urban centers and Indigenous communities to share her inspirational messages. So we're going to hear that today as well, around higher learning and healthy living. So Inez is currently the nursing supervisor for the Stolo Service Agency, so we're really thrilled to have both Lisa and Inez here today. Now, facilitating the conversation is Dr. Becky Palmer. Becky has held leadership positions around the province with BC Children's Hospital and BC Women's Hospital over the past 8 years, and she joined First Nations Health Authority in 2015 as their Chief Nursing Officer. She brings with her over 25 years of experience, so very much grounded in nursing practice, education and research, as well as 10 years of those in leadership positions. So Becky's kindly going to facilitate our conversation today, so I'm going to hand it over to you, Becky, Inez, and Lisa, and thank you so much.
Great, thanks, Colleen. And if you throw me the ball, then I can pick it up from there. Perfect, a technology piece in the background. So first and foremost, just huge gratitude for Virginia for starting us off in such a good way. I thank you for that. It's my experience every time I hear you speak and share your wise words is an opportunity to just be grounded in the work, and I thank you for the privilege to work in partnership with you. So thank you. Extending that as well to Lisa and to Inez, this is going to be so much fun to have an opportunity to have a conversation together, and we look forward to later on as we talk and we open up the dialogue to all of you guys on the webinar as well to hear from you and learn from you and continue together collectively to advance the work around cultural humility and cultural safety in practice. And I would offer that also looking at ways to embrace that in education, in research, and all facets of the work that we do in our professional and personal lives as well. So I thank you. And before we sort of get started with some prompting questions and dialogue, just to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll turn it over to Lisa and Inez maybe to share a little bit more about their own journey into nursing. Is Colleen shared about my years of service in nursing, and I think I would share with you that in terms of what brought me, the journey to me becoming a nurse, I could share with you that very early in my life, I knew that being of service to others was something that I found very grounding and important in my life. And as I've walked the pathway in nursing, I've learned through journey that's led me to leadership now is what drives me now is around servant leadership and an opportunity to be in partnership, to learn with and from and about others. So the work that I'm doing right now with our communities across the province and broader than that is a privilege, and the opportunity to grow and learn and play with others each and every day is one that I don't take for granted. It's pretty amazing and pretty special. So I thank you all for joining us. One of the questions I think we'll just start off as nurses do, we're relational creatures and like to get to know one another a little bit, is I'll share a little bit about myself and then turn it over to Lisa and Inez to share a bit more about themselves. I'm a mother of 3, a very important role that I hold. I have twins that are 15 and I have a 10-year-old daughter as well. I also have a very rich life of animals that serve in our family as well. And joining me today, although I won't turn the camera to him, is Damon, and he is a certified canine assisted intervention dog, so a trauma dog who's also sharing in the work around trauma-informed practice and care, and there's certainly something special for me around being able to share my life with another species as well, an opportunity to learn there. So I'll pause a little bit, and I will turn it over to maybe Inez first, to anything more you might want to share about yourself, just as who you are, and then a little bit about what brought you into nursing.
Sure. Awesome to see ya. Not tell squee, Kale. Good afternoon, early afternoon, everybody, and it's an honor to be on the call today. I was born and raised on the Scoquel First Nation, which is a suburban reserve in Chilliwack, BC, and something that brought me into nursing. When I was growing up, the discussion around the kitchen table with my family and my grandparents was always that, how can we move our people forward? How can we take control of our services? How can we build capacity? And the conversation always circled around with my father and my grandmother that we need to heal. We need to become healthier before we can grow. And so having reflected on that, I considered a career in health. And that's how I became really interested in nursing, and in particular community health nursing. So I went to UBC as a mature student, really only a few years older than the rest, and I was really quite different, but not too different than some of the other people who were there, and really found my passion in community health nursing, and am now been working as a nurse for probably 11 years.
Great. Thank you, Inez. And Lisa, for you.
Hello, everybody. It's an honor to be asked to this session. I'm from Nakasley Band. I work in Nakasley Band for the people here in Nakasley for the last 17 years as a community health nurse. I have 2 children. My bio said 1 child, but I have 2 children. My son is 22 and my daughter's 18, who recently went to TRU, so I'm a new empty nester. My first year getting through the empty nest syndrome. I think I did okay. I went to school in CNC in the old nursing program, and then graduated and went on to UNBC to complete my degree for a BSN, and came to Nakasley. Different than other nurses, that I didn't go to get a lot of hospital experience. I went straight to my home community to work, and so I've been working here almost 17 years now in my home community. And some of the reasons I went into nursing was I just always liked to help people and work with people, but I just really thought that I could make a difference in the people from my home community, in the healthcare system, and just being an advocate and a help. It's part of our growing up is helping, and we belong to a clan, and we're helping our clan members and our community members. And so I think I just always grew up with that value of wanting to help, and so nursing wasn't really on my radar. I wanted to be a teacher, but it just was a really good fit for me to be nursing and to be helping people like I was brought up to do.
Great, thank you. Just going to advance us a little bit here. What you're going to see is more pictures as Inez and Lisa talked about community health practice and working in community, and just very visual there for you, a little bit about showing you the amazing opportunity to work with First Nations and advance cultural humility and nursing in BC. I'll just take a minute to ground you in terms of the work at First Nations Health Authority, in terms of the role of Chief Nursing Officer coming into the healthcare system in British Columbia, CNO for First Nations Health Authority specifically, and a little bit about the nature of what that work is intended to be and how it's intended to unfold. And I thank you to Virginia as well as Inez and Lisa who really shared the word of healing in their introductions. And I would offer that a big importance of the role of that I'm holding right now coming to cultural humility in nursing is to help bridge the healing, help embrace the best of both worlds, to acknowledge the high-level vision of it starting with me, and that self-awareness and self-reflection in all aspects of professionalism, from point of care, clinical practice, to clinical education, to clinical research, and to systems transformation, is that self-reflection, self-awareness pieces that have me understand my part to play in a bigger system and help a system of healthcare move to a place that supports healing, that supports awareness, that supports wellness, and really embracing traditional medicine as well as Western medicine. So it's an opportunity to transform through innovation, through integration, and primarily through relationship and through relationship partnership. So super excited about the role, the work that's been done thus far. And knowing that every moment in time and every interaction and every conversation is an opportunity to embrace cultural safety and humility, and again, owning that it's starting with me. So I'll pause there a little bit and open the conversation then for Inez and Lisa around, maybe I'll start with Inez, is what does cultural safety and humility mean to you in your practice? And feel free to if sharing a story is important, feel free to take us through a story or however you wish to embrace that question.
Thanks, Becky. When I think about cultural safety and humility, I think about sitting with an elder having tea, how I would conduct myself in that space. And it's funny because when I think about that, I think about paced listening, a gentle approach, calmness, and well thought out responses where silence is not a tense thing. And you think about some of the different cultural differences of what silence means in different cultures, and that sometimes looking at how the elder would conduct themselves if I'm asking a question, and sometimes they would take a full minute to just think, look out the window, and really just be reflective, taking that time. And when I thought about my practice when I came home after doing bedside for a year in a very fast-paced environment at St. Paul's where, you know, you had to have the answer in a moment, it was such a change for me. And when I came home with that fast-paced attitude, thinking, okay, I'm from the community, I know these families, I was very quickly put in my place by my aunt, who was an older nurse who is very well trained in the culture and traditional protocols, and reminded me that I needed to slow down and I needed to listen and I needed to keep a pace where I could be connected and humble myself to that I wasn't going to achieve all the goals I wanted to as a nurse. I needed to go at the pace of where my client was at, and sometimes I wasn't going to be happy with that. And she's just suggested, you know what, you just need to go out there and go have tea with somebody, and then maybe by the third visit, that elder will let you do what you need to do, or you might eventually get to the diabetic education you need to. And I realized, wow, this isn't about me and my goals. It's about creating relationships. And I realized that I was so young and trying to go 100 miles an hour, I didn't pace myself. And so that lesson comes to me over and over again about cultural safety and humility, and that it's different for everybody, the growth is different for everybody. And I seem to have that experience about once a year with different people who I've taken on as mentors and teachers in my community.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And Lisa, your thoughts?
I just think growing up I was always taught to treat others how you want to be treated. And so that's the approach I take with my nursing is I want to go in and treat people how I want to be treated. And sometimes I find, and as Inez said, is building that relationship and taking time to build that relationship, because I find if we're on our own schedule and not on their schedule, and we don't develop that relationship, you're not going to have people coming in the door to see you when they need help. And so I remember having someone that came into our office and I said, you really need to get to the doctor, and I really can't do anything here in community health. You need to see a doctor who can check you over and give you some medications. But the way they felt and the way they were treated the last time they were in with the doctor, they didn't want to go back and have to feel that and to be treated like that again. And so cultural safety is we have to have a safe environment for that person, a safe mutual respect with that person, and be a safe person that they can come to when they need help, because if they're going to be really sick and they don't trust the system or they don't trust the person and they don't have that relationship built, then they're not going to be coming in for the help that they need. And we're going to see them further down the line where we could have done something more preventatively. So definitely developing that relationship, having mutual respect, and just being treated how you treat others how you would like to be treated. And I often say that you have a power dynamic. I guess we can't be above anybody. We need to be equal with each other. And so when you have that equal relationship with each other, then you're going to have people coming in the door to see you, and you're going to be a safe person that they're going to trust and come to get help when they need it.
Beautiful. And in hearing you both talk, what showed up for me is the significance of relationship, and that the relationship doesn't exist by virtue of an interaction. It might be something that develops over time, and you build that relationship with others. And I love what you said, Inez, just as well around slowing down and meeting the pace of those whom you're with. And I think that's such an important message, particularly, in times where there is I think about nursing practice or clinical practice in terms of, here's what I need to get done, here's the task I need to accomplish, the documentation I need to do, all those pieces that are wrapped up into sometimes our ways of working. And it has me question sometimes, are those constructs we hold in our own head or expectations we hold in our own head, and what ways could those be preventing or creating a barrier towards cultural humility and that relationship with with those who we have an opportunity to learn about their health from. And the piece you brought forward, Lisa, around mutual respect and the fundamentals of treating others as you want to be treated yourself. So important. And I think about or reflect upon, my own journey in cultural humility. And Inez, you highlighted that, this is a lesson that we continue to learn. And I think the gift in what you've just shared there is that this isn't, for me anyway, I think about cultural humility in a way that it's not a checkbox that you click and you tick off and you go, yeah, I've nailed it, I've got it. For me, it's like an everyday way of learning and showing up and remaining curious and humble. And I know through my journey in this last year in this role is, I think about those times that in my intention to do good and to create action is in reflection, I did to or I did for as opposed to be with. So love what you shared in terms of, it's about sitting in relationship with others and, having tea with an elder and how much we can learn from that relationship. So cool. Thinking a little bit about, I know we've got lots of clinicians on the line, lots of our partners in the work coming from many different clinical backgrounds as I'm seeing people introduce themselves in areas in the province. What advice would you give other nurses who would like to practice care in a culturally safe and humble way, but are unsure of how to start? So if you were sitting down for tea with a group of our nursing colleagues across the province or other clinicians or other folks in the healthcare system, what would you like them to know about or advice you would give them so that they can get started in this journey? And maybe I'll turn that one over to Lisa. Can you start us off on that one?
Yep, I can talk about this. Sometimes we get a lot of nursing students here, and we get a lot of med students through our clinics, and I talk to them about getting to know, developing a relationship with the community that you're in, getting to know who are the key people in the community and who are the resources you can be working with and develop that relationship and oftentimes I tell them that you need to get to know the people that you're with. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a journey of how they got to their story today, where they are today. And it doesn't matter if they're brown, white, rich or poor, young or old. Everybody has a different story and a different approach that might work with them. And so we need, in the past, it used to be we had a professional telling us how to live our lives. Today, as professionals, we need to be partners with the people that we're working with. We need, because they have tried things. They have done different attempts that if you worked with someone who is an addict, then they might have tried this and it might not have worked, and they might have done this and it worked really well for them. So you really need to get to know and develop a relationship with the person that you're working with that's in front of you. And remember that this is a human being in front of us. And sometimes I get turned off by, why do we need to have cultural safety or cultural humility when we're dealing with a human being in front of us? And every person we're dealing with is a human being in front of us. And so we just need to treat that person as a person, find out what is their story, how did they get to where they are today. We are a professional and an expert in medical, but they are an expert in their lives. They are an expert in their life, and we need to do a cross-capacity building. And so not be a professional up here and them down here, but we need to be a partner in their journey, finding out where have they been, how did they get there, what works for them and what doesn't work for them, and help them as a partner to get to where do they need to get to. And so I always try to remind students of that they need to make sure just to remember the person in front of them has a different story than the person before that came through the door and the next person that's coming the door after them. And what is their story? And I think when we have that, you have that professional and partner, there's that power dynamics with the health system. And so when we make an approach where we are coming to them as a partner, I think you're going to get a lot more done. And a lot of times, too, you need to remember that they have gone through many different experiences, and they might be testing you. And sometimes it's sitting down, having that tea on their agenda, like Inez said, and getting to know them, and they're going to build that trust for you. They're feeling you out, and then you can get on the agenda once they see that you're okay, that you're someone that they can trust and respect. Then you're going to start moving forward with that person. And so you have to remember sometimes they might put up a wall there that they come to you with, but you can get through that wall. And so I just try to tell people also that when we get social work students or med students and nurses, that we need you to help in our communities. We need you to help us. We know where we are today, and we know we have issues in our communities and problems. But if you're going to try to, it took us so many hundreds of years to get to the place where we are today because of colonization, that it's going to take us a while to get out of this place, and that we know where we are. We have tried several approaches, and in the time that you're coming to communities, sometimes you're not going to save us. And sometimes some people burn themselves out trying to save us. Instead of trying to save us, work with us with what has been done, find out what has been done, what needs to be done, what are new approaches we can try with individuals or with communities, but don't burn yourself out trying to save people. Work with the people with along their journey, what's going to work for them, because we need you all to help us. Thanks.
Oh, I love your heart words. Very beautifully said. Thank you, Lisa. Inez, some of your thoughts on that. What advice would you want to give if somebody was sitting at the table for tea with you right now?
First of all, I just want to acknowledge what Lisa said. It's so many, everything that you said, you hit the nail on the head that, especially with the piece where people are really struggling to accept other people's decisions and even other people's lifestyles. We sometimes, and even myself, I catch myself really realizing I have to accept that this client is refusing care, or I have to accept that this person is not ready. And we've done our due diligence according to our CRNBC standards in terms of educating, offering care, and then leaving it at that and being available, but not taking that home with me, or not taking that to my office, or further passing judgment even. Because some of the teachings that I can recall that who are we to judge? Who are we to even know someone's history or know their experience? And like Lisa said, we don't sometimes know what someone has gone through in their life. And like I was having a little giggle when she was saying that sometimes they'll test you. And I experience that quite often when some clients who are very untrusting will use silence as power. Especially I find young women who have felt disempowered, and they use silence as power. And you'll talk and talk, give them an opportunity to talk, and they will still remain silent and stare at you. And I think, okay, that's okay, we'll try again. And kind, gentle persistence of giving them those opportunities. But I find that when I was a nursing student and we spoke in class a few times about cultural safety, this is when it was starting to become a buzzword, a number of the non-Indigenous students sat down with me at a lunch break and said, so what do we do? Tell us the formula. How do we do this? And they were really looking for almost a step-by-step process, and I had to explain there isn't a process. You have to really get to know the person, self-reflect on how you're communicating, and I found that a lot of these young students were so eager and almost caught up in a mindset and system of assertiveness. The sort of old boys, old style club of abrasive competition in the classroom, who can answer the question first, very competitive. And I find that when we get into those fast-paced atmospheres, say in bedside, when I worked in bedside, my patient ratio was 9 to 1. You know, when we say slow down, nurses who work in those kind of environments just laugh because you can't slow down. You have very little time to connect. But I found that when I worked in that environment, even though I had 3 seconds, I would take a moment and just look at them in the eye and make the most of the little bit of time that you had to connect and show that you cared and accept where they were at without any judgment. There was one client I remember on the ward that so many nurses were frustrated with. He was abusive, persistent, on his bell, and rumors were flying that this person was a pedophile, a convicted pedophile, and people refused to serve this person. And I had to really ask myself, am I the responsible one to judge this person, or am I a nurse serving a human being? And I really had to ask myself, why am I here? I'm not here to judge him or punish him or even to know whether that's true or not. And he was not a great person to care for, but I had to fall back on my traditional values that I will honor him as a human being and give him the best service I can without compromising my values or my responsibility to my nursing license. And that was hard, but I did it, and I'm glad I had that experience because I bring it home because I have many challenging clients in our program who, again, refuse care or, you know, sometimes we have to remind them about the nonviolence and, you know, no swearing, and it really comes back to their frustrations. So many challenges, so many systemic barriers, systemic racism, navigating systems, juggling their own trauma and feelings, and just being patient with them and meeting them where they're at, and really conveying an acceptance and love towards them, and a commitment to be available to them. There's no formula. It's all an approach. It's all in the energy that you convey and share in your space, because we're getting in somebody's space, and if they can sense that you're rushed, they can sense that you don't want to be there and that you don't care, people can smell that on you. People can smell that energy, and they won't want to engage. And so it really is about almost resetting your energy, taking a deep breath, and moving forward. And it takes practice. I'm still practicing that every day.
That's wonderful. Thank you to you both, because you're highlighting some real key concepts. I'm just jotting down a few things for myself as you were both sharing your wisdom and hearing that it's about self-reflection and real self-awareness, and it's about relationship, I heard, and partnership. Again, that concept of meeting people where they're at, and that even in environments where it may be less able to honor that, slow down, that there's still opportunity to create relationship there as well. Hearing a lot about this is really about person-centered care, so honoring the person that's in front of you, that human being in front of you, not the 12th person you might have seen this day or what have you. So it's really about connecting with that individual whom you're have the privilege of spending time with. Great ideas around the, acknowledging the power dynamics that are at play for us as providers in a system where, it has placed overtly and covertly as the provider, as the one holding the power. And, what's the opportunity to shift that dynamic so that individuals feel safe and able to access care and share what's happening for them. Love your idea around there is no formula to this, so there is no 10-step manual to cultural safety and humility. It's about the energy you bring, and it's in your approach. And I will be thinking about this notion of how to reset your energy, and I'm imagining that everyone will have a different way to do that. So just an invitation for those of you on the line to be thinking about for yourselves, what might that look like for you in terms of resetting your energy when, when the going gets tough and you need to tap into something. So thank you. That's awesome advice. So thinking about it for, not all nurses might be familiar with that concept of cultural safe care, or perhaps maybe not even express an interest or have an interest to say, how is this relevant for the work that I do here and now? So what advice might you give to nurses who may not have an awareness or interest in the importance of culturally safe care? And I'll flip it around, and maybe Inez, you can share some thoughts around that.
So giving feedback to somebody who may not have a cultural awareness is what you had asked?
Yeah, or maybe it's around why is this important for all of us to consider?
I have a funny story. So when I very first started nursing, my first job was at St. Paul's, and there was a lovely lady who worked there. She was always so kind and encouraging. As a new RN, I was always feeling flustered with my patient load and rushing, and she was always so positive and encouraging. And one day while she was in the back room, she said to me, I just have to say, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but you mentioned, and she said, you're actually very beautiful for a First Nations woman because your people are not very good, naturally good looking. And I took a deep breath, And without trying to respond in anger, I reminded myself, here's a learning opportunity. Here's an opportunity to share. And I expressed that I was offended by her comment, and I explained why. And I thought, I need to be calm, and I cannot convey any kind of anger, even though I was, of course, livid and very offended, because I thought, here's an opportunity to provide a different perspective to this person. And if I get angry and if I convey my anger, she's not going to hear me, because it's not going to be a safe place for me to share a different opinion. And that was probably one of the very first, most challenging conversations I had. And she was at a place where she was not willing to hear the feedback. She was set in her view. And I had to realize in that moment that I'm going to come across many people like this in my profession and in my life. And I'm not going to change her opinion here and today. But I can respectfully disagree with her and provide some feedback that, perhaps if you have that opinion, it's not a very safe thing to share. Thank you. I appreciate that you're giving me a comment, but it is a very backhanded comment and very racist. And so I think about her often, because she said that I hurt her feelings by sharing that. And I apologize, because my intent was not to hurt her feelings. I respected her support, and I reaffirmed that I appreciated her kindness and support in my new practice. But I did have to share as well with her that her comment was very offensive. And so in that moment, I thought, I can do this. I can provide loving, gentle, but informative feedback to things that offend me or are racist, because we encounter racism all of the time. And I realized, well, I can't win every battle. And sometimes you just have to let it go in the moment, assess, is this something that is going to be safe, not only for myself, but also that person? Is the environment an appropriate space to share? Or, you don't want to make someone feel corrected in front of anybody, because you want to make them feel, you want to give them tools for their toolbox or some insight. And I find that you just can't take on every battle. And that's probably been the best self-perseverance that I've made for myself.
I thank you for sharing that, and I'm so in taking courage to be in that moment and share the impact for you. And I'm left wondering, sometimes you never know when you've planted a seed, that really grows into someone learning something really valuable. So thank you, and I'm hopeful that you planted a seed in that moment. Yeah. Lisa, how about for you? Thoughts
I was thinking of the same things too, back to stories of different times in my life where I have had to deal with racism and how little I felt over time. But as I've grown and come to the same aha moment that I need to pick my battles, it's out there. I can't fight every single fight, or I'm going to run myself ragged and not be good to anybody. But people have different tolerances at different times of their lives as they grow and mature. So the person in front of you, you don't know what kind of words are going to be hurting them. You don't know what's going to be offending them. So just be aware of that. I think a little bit someone said about being curious and being non-judgmental when you're coming across that. That's huge. I always talk to people, wonder about the person in front of you. What is the story? And don't just assume and don't have a stereotype right there. Again, for the students, but to get to the question, for people that don't want to talk about humility and cultural safety, is when we were young, especially in the social health field, social workers and nurses and doctors, why, when we were little girls or little boys, we got planted in our head that we want to help people when we grow up, and we want to become a nurse or we want to become a doctor. Why did you decide to become a nurse or a doctor or a social worker? for the majority of us, it was because we wanted to help people. We wanted to make a difference. And so for even the nurses or doctors or social workers that don't want to promote or participate in cultural safety or cultural humility, remember, why did you get into the career that you're in today? And it was to help the people in front of you. And it was to help people. And so we need to get back to remember, why did we choose this career? And when we don't participate in cultural safety or cultural humility, we can be hurting the people that we're working with and putting on a setback.
Thank you. I'm noticing that time is going by super quickly, and there's so many more questions that I have for both Inez and for Lisa, but I also think it's really valuable to hear from you. So I think before I turn it over to Colleen to moderate the open floor, just want to sort of close this aspect of the conversation as a call to action for all of you on the webinar, and putting out there that we're encouraging all nurses who may work with First Nations or Aboriginal Indigenous peoples to begin a journey of self-awareness, education, and openness to learn about the communities and people they serve. And some information there for you to have a look at the FNHA portal, and an opportunity to deepen your commitment and pledge around cultural safety and learning. So I will close there, knowing we've got some time to hear from you. And I know that Inez and Lisa and myself are open to hearing your thoughts and your questions, and invite you to share what you're thinking and questions that you may have. So Colleen, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'll get you to hand the ball back to me, Becky. When you have a moment, you can play a game of catch with me. I just wanted to thank you all, Lisa, Inez, and Becky. This has been a very thought-provoking session for me. I've written down, it feels like these word of wisdom after word of wisdom after word of wisdom from your experience. And you know, I couldn't possibly summarize them all, but one of the ones that really stood out for me that you all touched on is that it's about relationships and how everyone's story is different. And really working to understand the story of the person right in front of you, understanding who they are and what role that plays. And that, in reality, cultural humility is not a checkbox that you complete, but something that's ongoing, and it's a journey of constantly learning and being humble and appreciating how much you still have to learn. And I think that's a really important message among many that you shared with us today. So thank you, all of you. We really wanted to create the space to provide time for questions. So we'd like to invite folks on the line to either raise their hand and or pop a question in the chat box, and we'll make sure we read it out if you pop it in the chat box to Inez, Lisa, and Becky. And we'll also unmute line for those of you who have your hands up. And now I did notice a hand up a little while ago, so I'm just going to peek through here and see if it's still up. Nope, it's not up anymore. Just looking through here. So again, if you have any questions, you can type them into the chat box or raise your hand and we'll unmute your line. Lots of comments in the chat box right now about, you know, assessing in the moment is such a pivotal step, and thank you for sharing this experience. So comments around that. I'm just going to give it another minute to see if there's any questions coming in on the chat box.
While we're waiting for a question, can I just mention something else too? I noticed.
Absolutely. Please do, Inez.
Oh,
that's Lisa. Sorry.
Noticed UBC and BCIT. When we get students coming home and we talk to them, I find a lot of them are task-oriented, and our programs for school need to be, yes, we need to learn the tasks, and yes, we need to have all these skills when we're going through school, but we need to pay attention to having time to talk to students about how, and what's important in health is building those relationships and being open and non-judgmental and curious and remembering people have a story in front of us. So I just really want the schools to remember in the programming that we really need to make sure that we make this a part of programming for the universities, for the nurses, for the doctors, for the social workers, is that time to really provide the teaching to go back, to include the relationship, developing the relationships in the communities, and not just all about tasks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think that's an incredible piece of advice, Lisa, is that those technical skills that we have as clinicians are critical, but so are those, I'll call them non-technical skills, the way we talk to each other, the way we work with each other, the way we work to understand and respect each other. Thank you for that. Leona, I notice you've got your hand up, so I'm going to invite Sue to unmute your line. Go ahead, Leona.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, everyone, Becky, Inez, and Lisa, for your words of wisdom. I share many of your thoughts. As myself being First Nations from the Hatteras on Vancouver Island, I related to both Lisa and Inez's stories quite a bit. And, you know, having taught in the system, worked in the system, and worked in First Nations, some things that come up for me when I'm listening to your ladies' comments is to, you know, I agree with everything you've said. And also, humility is about being open to being taught, to being teachable. And also it's about, you know, not coming in with this false pride that you are going to save a bunch of people. You're a guest coming into communities. You're welcome to come in and help. As Lisa said, we need your help. But you're also a guest that comes in. So when you come in, put your hand out and say, hi, I'm so-and-so. Don't be shy. When I had students in the hospital, I said, you have to go say hi to your patients first and introduce yourself before you even lay a hand on them to do some kind of procedure. The clinical piece is easy to teach. It's that human being piece that I found a lot of students had a hard time with, because they get task-oriented. They want to start an IV. They want to do all the really neat stuff in nursing. But that building a relationship, like, you know, I can't emphasize what Lisa, Inez, and Becky have already said, that if you can get that base down first, you're going to get so much further with the people you're working with than jumping into it. It'll turn them off. I brought a nurse to one of our remote communities. We actually hired him from Australia, and he did not stop talking. He just talked and talked and talked. Like, it was exhausting. And I finally had to say to him, okay, we're going to go sit on the bench in front of the water. We're going to be quiet for about 5 minutes. And I said, and that's something you're going to have to learn when you come into our community, that silence is okay. As I think Inez spoke to that earlier. And these are shifts in how we think and behave and present ourselves, from maybe an acute care setting for the UBC and the other CCIP students to how we are when we go into community. And it's, you know, it's a learning journey. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that, Leona. We really appreciate that. Now, there's a bundle of questions coming to the chat box, and I'm going to have to apologize right now that we may not get to them all. I'm going to highlight one of them, is that Becky asked the question if there's any resources that people have that they want to share in the system, that they please throw them in the chat box. One specific question, and I'll leave it up to you to decide who wants to answer this one, Becky, Inez, and Lisa, and that's for folks who are non-Indigenous. There was a couple questions relating to this in the chat box. Do you have any specific advice for them as they go on this journey? I know a lot of the things you talked about applies to everyone, but specific advice for how to move forward in their own cultural humility journey.
I'd like to respond to that. I think some of the questions are talking about, you know, some nurses that I've met along the way who are really deeply concerned, you know, I'm not from this community, I'm Caucasian, I'm not, or from a different culture, and I don't know the culture, and I say, you know, find opportunities and different people that you've connected with in the community and ask them, how can I participate? Because quite often what I find is that clients will connect with you if they feel like you're a part of the community. And so being creative and finding ways to make yourself a part of the community. And I love it, one of my community health workers here uses this term called the professional friend zone. Because when you're living in a small community, it can be challenging because you need to protect your professional boundaries, but you also need to build relationships. So that brings the professional boundaries slightly to a different place. But yet we need to make sure that we have boundaries, that we're not overworking ourselves, we're not compromising our professional relationship with people. So finding opportunities, whether it's attending the community basketball tournament, you know, maybe coaching there, maybe helping in the kitchen at feast ceremonies or asking to attend those kinds of things, becoming involved in a community member in a way that you feel comfortable with, you know, and connecting with different people at FNHA or your advisor to, if you need some advice on, is this a professional activity that's going to be helpful? Because I know that it can be challenging to navigate those kinds of things, and I know I advise all the time on, here's an opportunity, here's how you conduct yourself. And I'm, you know, from the community, and as a nurse, I feel like I can sometimes make those judgment calls, and some of the non-Indigenous staff have trouble knowing whether that's a professional activity or not. So I would say connect with some people in your community, some of the Indigenous or local people who can help to advise you, and find something where you can plug in and make some connections, because that's the place where you're going to run into the client that is behind on immunizations. And maybe you're playing ball with them and you're like, hey, we'll see you Monday, you know. That's the kind of stuff that people really like to see.
Brilliant response, Inez, and I'd love to allow more time for questions. I know there's so many people on the line, but it looks like our time is already up together today, and I just wanted to thank you again. We really appreciate the words of insight that you shared, Inez, Lisa, and Becky. Very thoughtful discussion and some great questions here. If anyone has any thoughts or answers, you're welcome to stay on the line and pop them in the chat box for a few minutes. But just before we wrap up, we just wanted to remind you that our next session is on June 7th. Our final speakers are still to be confirmed, but we do have our partners from Northern Health coming to join us to talk about their work around cultural safety, resources that they've created for ensuring care is accessible, safe, clear, and welcoming for Indigenous people in the North. So we're so excited about that session coming up, and we hope that you'll be able to join us. Before we wrap up, we also want to let you know a survey will pop up on your screen when you're done. Please, if you have a few minutes to take the time to complete the survey, we really do want to hear from you. Our organizing group that pulls these sessions together reviews all of these results and takes the feedback very seriously to help direct the future sessions. Just wanted to thank you all again so very much. Inez, Lisa, and Becky, this was a fantastic conversation, very insightful words that you've shared today. And I just want to do a final handover to Virginia if you would be so kind to close our meeting today and our call today.
Thank you again, Colleen. And thank you to Lisa and to Inez and Becky. I think a lot of really good sharing has been done today. And it was so good to see so many people who have the interest and were taking the time, you know, to attend. So, you know, the word is spreading out. We all know that this is just really important, and the sharing that was done by our nurses really indicates that the blending of the two worlds is really, really important, and we really need to find those ways to incorporate a lot of our teachings into the programs and services that we provide to our people. So we thank our Creator for allowing us this time for us to come together, to open our hearts, to open our minds, to hear each other, and to be able to put them in a place within our hearts so that we can continue moving forward in a really good way, ensuring that our people are receiving the best as they can, you know, with the blending of the two worlds. So thank you, Creator, for all of this, and thank you for this day, for bringing us together, all my relations.
Thank you so much, Virginia. It's always lovely to have you join us, and I really appreciate you taking the time to close this really amazing conversation up. Thank you to everyone today for joining us, and I want to thank again Virginia, Lisa, Inez, and Becky, and our partners at FNHA for this amazing session today. We look forward to chatting with you all next month. Have a wonderful day, and thank you. Bye-bye.